What's good, YouTube? I'm walking to a friend's house right now. Check this out. At Michelin, only at Michelin can you buy 4 for the price of 3. Look at that. Napa shocks and struts. Only at Michelin. Yeah, Michelin. Ha, 3 and 4. Yeah, that number combination's everywhere. Isn't life so deliciously ironic? St. Patrick's Day is almost upon us. Aye. And if you're strutting through a field of clovers this St. Patty's Day, are they 3-leaf clovers or are they 4-leaf clovers? How many corners on the globe are there? There's north, south, east, and west. Which by my calculations, that would mean 4 corners. Huh. How many seasons are there? Summer, fall, winter, spring, repeat. Okay, that means 4 seasons. In fact, YouTube, the very same hospital I was born in has 4 garage doors on the side of it. And out of those 4 garage doors on the hospital, on the side of it, there were 2 of them, 2 separate doors that have a number. One door has a 3, the other one has a 4. I worked at Wendy's for 4 years before I was wrongfully terminated. And my clock-in number at Wendy's was 4. But the 3rd year I was working there, they changed it. You basically entered the last 4 digits of your social security number into the computer. Once it was saved into the computer, all you had to do was blip, scan your thumbprint, and you were good to go. That's how you clocked in. Yeah. Now, I had this cute girl I had a crush on in high school, and I felt bad for crushing on her because at the time, I didn't learn things like social class and shit like that. But anyway, this girl I used to have a crush on in high school, she used to work at Hooters, and she was in a Hooters beauty pageant, and she wanted to win, you know. And there was this pre-contest thing before the actual pageant, and on her Facebook page it said, "Vote for me here." So I voted for her every day until that little pre-thing was over. And then I screamed to the universe. I says, let her win that beauty pageant. And guess what, YouTube? After screaming to the universe for her to win that beauty pageant, she did. Oh yeah, she did. And the photo she posted to Facebook, man, she looked like she was having the time of her life in that photo, man. She looked so fucking happy. I was just like, ah, you know. But here's where things get a little bit coincidental. Okay, when she posted a photo of herself in a bikini from the contest, she was standing next to this other girl who was also wearing a bikini. Now, the girl in question who won the contest was wearing a green bikini, and the girl she was standing next to was wearing a black bikini. I'm like, all right, black and green, my 2 favorite colors. That's a coincidence. But then the girl in the black bikini, she had a little 3 pinned to her bikini bottom. And the contestant winner herself had a 4 pinned to her bikini. I'm like, okay, that's my clock-in number at work. That was, you know, life is kind of cool sometimes, you know, how the universe plays out irony like that, you know? Yeah. Right now, I'm heading to a friend's house. He just got a bottle of crack in. He's like, hey, man, you want a drink? I'm like, you ain't got to tell me twice. I tried to upload an hour-long vocal cover video to YouTube, and Photo Booth recorded it with no sound. That kind of pissed me off. I'm like, really? Oh, man. Fucking weak. Casper's girlfriend Wendy, she likes to blow. And, you know, when I had screamed at the universe, let her win the beauty pageant, and seeing that she actually did win the beauty pageant, I felt less guilty about crushing on her in high school. But as it turns out, I know for a fact that the girl who won the beauty pageant is a huge, I don't know if she's a huge fan, but she does like the show Bob's Burgers. And I'd have to agree with her on that. That show is pretty fucking funny. But there was one particular episode of Bob's Burgers I remember called Hawk and Chick, where Bob Belcher and his kids have to do voiceover acting for a Japanese audioed movie. And Linda talks to her daughter Tina, and she goes, "So Tina, how many parts for the movie do you have?" Tina goes, 3. Linda Belcher says, "Well, 3 is a good number. I have 4," and they go back and forth with it. I'm like, what? Yeah. Not only that, but the girl in question has 6 letters in her first name. The Atlanta Falcons lost in the Super Bowl, which, yeah, that sucks, but at least they made it to the Super Bowl, so I'm at least happy for that. But the Atlanta Falcons lost by 6 points, and the winning team scored 34 points. That's 3-4 for the win. And not only that, but the football team who won the Super Bowl also won their 4th Super Bowl ring. And it's just weird how life can do that sometimes, you know? It truly is weird how life does that sometimes. And even if I wanted to forget about that girl I used to have a crush on in high school, it's hard, YouTube. Because when life is pulling shit like that, you can't forget. It won't let you, you know. I can remember one day when I was working at Wendy's, and when they shout, "What's your chicken count?" they're asking somebody in the kitchen, both on front and drive, to check how much chicken they have, so they know if they need to put down more or something like that, you know what I'm saying? Well, one day it was pretty standard, you know, they shout, one of my ex-managers, I should say, shouted, "What's your chicken count?" And someone shouts back, 3 and 4. And then, YouTube, not a second after they'd shouted out the chicken count, "What's your chicken count?" 3 and 4. Then someone called a customer from the lobby to get their order. And I shit you not, the customer in question, she had the same exact name as that girl I had a crush on in high school. And I just stood there washing trays like, come on, man. Irony is one of the grander things in life, YouTube. Irony is truly a grand thing. And you know, ever since she won that beauty pageant, you know, I see the number combination popping up everywhere. Almost like the number 23, like that movie, kind of, you know, kind of like that. You know, you start seeing it everywhere. You know, if your town's big enough, you're gonna have a 3rd and a 4th Street guaranteed. Every car and truck has 4 tires. Every truck has a 4x4 or a 3x4, you know. Shit. If you're in a zombie apocalypse, you're gonna want C4. Those are some handy explosives to have in the zombie apocalypse if it should happen. You know, it's just cool seeing a coincidence like that. You know, it's surreal, YouTube. No, but this girl I had a crush on in high school, man, she was one of those chicks, you had to be the right guy to look at her. And if you were not the right guy in her eyes, you couldn't look at her, even if she was dressed sexy as hell, you know. And there'd be a couple of days she'd come to school and she would purposely dress in a way to attract the opposite sex. And whenever I checked her out, it was, oh, don't look at me, you creep. And it's like, well, shit. You don't want guys looking at you, then why the fuck are you wearing a shirt with cleavage and ass-hugging jeans? Okay, seriously, that would be like me taking a hot rod to the hot rod show and getting pissed off at people when they check out my car. You know, they would be like, well, if you didn't want people looking at your car, then why'd you take it to a hot rod show, you know? And I can remember having this girl in my art class a couple times. And in Miss Callahan's art class one fine sunny afternoon, doing my artwork, ignoring the fact that at the time I had my high school crush in the same class as me, and also trying to ignore the fact that she was sitting at the table in front of mine, you know, and I'm just like, focus on your artwork. And the classroom I was in was kind of small at the time, you know, so it was kind of hard not to overhear people's conversations. And she's sitting there with her circle of friends and she says, watch this, watch this, watch this, watch this. And then she looks up at me with the most disgusted look on her face and she says, don't look at me, you creep. And the thing of it was, is I wasn't even looking at her, you know. I was trying to do my fucking artwork. And I looked at her like, what the fuck is your problem? I didn't say that, but I said, I wasn't looking at you. And then she said it again, don't look at me, you know, kind of thing. And not even 5 minutes later, she gets up, she walks to the front of the classroom, and she goes to grab art supplies. And she bends over so that her cleavage is facing my direction. Like, come on, you know. And then, on top of that, YouTube, this girl would tell anybody who would listen how much she hated me. Oh, I hate him. I hate him. And it's like, well, shit, sorry for acknowledging that you're attractive. Not that you need help with that department, you know? Fuck. But come to find out, YouTube, usually when a chick says she hates you and she has no legit reason for doing so, it means secretly she likes you. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying, YouTube? Yeah, you know what I'm saying. Yep. First time I met this chick, I shit you not, I had just moved to North Dakota from California, and being the new kid sucks. My parents thought it would be a good idea to sign me up for this church field trip. So I go into this church, and there's a group of kids my own age there at the time, including this smoking hot blonde. I was like, damn, she's cute, you know what I'm saying, YouTube? Well, the church field trip was very pleasant. We went to this arcade and played arcade games and go-kart racing, and then afterwards, we went to this pizza restaurant, and We were eating pizza there. And I walked into the arcade section of this pizza restaurant we were eating at. I noticed this cute blonde in my group that I'd seen earlier trying to get something out of the vending machine. And this was little me before entering 6th grade at the time. Literally the summer before 6th grade year. I whip out 50 cents, drop it in the vending machine, give it a turn, and out popped a leather purse about yay big and about yay tall. And I was like, man, when I seen that happen, I was like, man, you could not have planned that better. That was perfect, dude. I gave that purse to her and she's like, oh, thank you, you know. And then I remember her leaving it on the table, me giving it back to her on the bus and all that. And then later on, when there was this community center dance in that town, like one of the first dances I ever went to, I seen her there, you know. And growing up, man, I had the worst luck. Like, I never had the courage to ask a girl to dance because I was painfully aware of my autism and how socially awkward I am. So talking to girls is like kind of hard for me, you know. But for whatever fucking reason, I didn't let this chick's beauty intimidate me. And I walked up to the dance to ask her to dance. Like, I couldn't believe I actually did it. You know, I'm like, hey, you want to dance? And she's like, and she told me she already had a boyfriend. And I'm like, whoa, shit, my bad. You know, you can't blame a guy for trying. You really can't. And come to find out, YouTube, the girl in question has had nothing but shitty, loser, pieces of shit boyfriends. And that, honestly, not trying to talk shit here, but that doesn't surprise me. And the reason I say that is if you're the kind of girl that knows you're super attractive, but you act stuck up and superficial about it, you know, with the whole the right guy can look and the wrong guy can't look bullshit, especially when you deliberately know that you're going to dress in a way, okay? If you say to yourself that morning, you're going to dress in clothes that make the opposite sex notice you. If you consciously make that decision on purpose, then why get pissed off when guys look at you? Seriously, you dress like that for that purpose, but when the wrong guy looks, he's a creep. Fuck that. That's stupid, you know? And I'll admit, YouTube, I've made some mistakes with my first relationship I had. And, you know, I can learn from my mistakes, you know. But girls like her would never give a nice guy like me a chance because I'm not in her social class. Ooh. You know, but high school is high school, YouTube. I'm not one to hold grudges or anything, you know what I'm saying? Then come to find out, YouTube, she contacted me on YouTube a couple years ago on one of my older accounts. Sure did. She contacted me underneath the YouTube username Hot Blonde VC, and she left a comment on one of my videos. I remember you, Winky Face. I'm like, I bet you do. I bet you do. I bet you do. But yeah, life is full of irony like that, man. You know, when shit like that happens, you cannot literally explain how it happens or why it happens. You just know, YouTube, it happens. Honestly, I think it's kind of cool how life does that sometimes with the coincidences and irony. Yeah. And then the Super Bowl before this one, I think the football team in the last Super Bowl, not the one we just had, but there was a Super Bowl prior to the one we just had, very prior to the one we just had, and the winning team had won by 4 points and literally won their 4th Super Bowl within a decade or some shit like that. And, how can you ignore the irony when it's there, you know? Does she deserve what she gets? No, she doesn't deserve to be treated like shit by boys. The girl in question doesn't deserve to have shitty loser boyfriends. In fact, when it comes to dating in general, nobody deserves to have a shitty significant other. But you find if you have a shitty attitude in life, you're going to attract shitty people. It's just the unfortunate reality of it. See, in my case, YouTube, women are either creeped out by me because they don't know me, or they're intimidated by my good looks and YouTube fame. So, it's kind of hard sometimes, but you make the best of it. That's all you can do. Yeah. In fact, one time, back in the day though, when I was still in high school, my stepmom would pick me up from school and we'd drive across town. We'd drive across town to go pick up my little sister from daycare. And I remember at the time, I saw this house with this gorgeous front yard and this big black dog. And me being a dog person, my stepmom was taking forever to talk to the babysitter at the daycare. So to kill some time, I would literally get out of the car, walk across the street from my sister's daycare, and start petting and playing with this dog, this big black dog named Mud. And this dog was super cool, you know what I'm saying? One day, I found out who the dog's owner was. My mom was taking forever to pick up my little sister from daycare at the time, as usual, and, I walk across the street, I start petting the dog, and right as I'm petting the dog, the owner and her mother come up into the driveway. And who should it be, YouTube? But the very same girl I had a crush on in high school. Great. I can tell you right now that the look on her face was sheer mortified. And the look on my face, I was mortified and embarrassed too. I'm like, fuck, this is not helping my case. This poor chick thinks I'm stalking her in high school and this isn't gonna help my case. How do I explain to her that I happen to be petting your dog because I'm a dog person, and honestly, I had no idea you were living here. Otherwise, I wouldn't even step foot on the property, you know what I'm saying? But for like 2 whole seconds of looking into her eyes and looking at my own reflection, I didn't need a mirror to see that. We both had that look on our face. Me and this poor girl had this look on our face like, oh shit, And luckily, my stepmom had come out from across the street out of my sister's daycare with my little sister, and she said, Josh, it's time to go. And thank whatever force exists that my mom did that, because that pretty much saved me the awkward conversation of her getting out of the car and saying, what the hell are you doing at my house? Oh, I'm just petting your dog. I had no idea this was your house. Otherwise, I would not have stepped foot on the premises. Needless to say, YouTube, I never went over to that house again. If my mom took forever getting my little sister out of daycare, I stayed in the fucking car. That was so painfully awkward for me. I didn't want that chick to think I was stalking her, and that whole rule YouTube, that whole rule about not petting a stranger's dog, they mean something by that. You know what I'm saying? Like, fuck. But yeah, like I said, if I'd known that that was my high school crush's house and my high school crush's dog, I would not have stepped foot on her premises. You know, I didn't know. You know, I'm naturally a dog person, you know, and it was a way for me to, you know, just whatever, you know. But that's all in the past now. Anyway, this is King Cobra JFS with another video. Catch you on the flip side, yo.